Hey, everybody, welcome back to X's for Podcast. This is Trade Waiting, the show where we take a look at the stories you might have missed out on and want to know if you're ready for. I'm Nico, and you guys can find me, if you're ready for it, over at Nico Action on Twitter and Instagram. That's NicoAction.
Hey, it's Nathan. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Dazzler AOA. That's like Dazzler in the Age of Apocalypse.
And that's a good combination. Not only is Dazzler great, but Age of Apocalypse has aged really well.
Yeah.
There was like a time where it maybe wasn't the hottest thing, right? One of the things that the 90s did was the 90s sort of pushed out a lot of what was, because the 80s for me, like from my vantage point, I was born in 86, and my vantage point kind of feels like the 80s in comics sort of vacillated between somewhere around the Lost Boys and Punky Brewster. Those were the two speeds, right? And Age of Apocalypse, for the most part, Age of Apocalypse was like, RoboCop all the way. But there was a smattering of the heart and emotion that made the X-Men so great in the first place. And I think we've seen it more, especially as the original creators came back to those stories and were given the opportunity to delve into them a little bit more. Why am I talking about Age of Apocalypse? Well, like I said, I felt like the 90s kind of did push a lot of the 80s cuteness out. And one of the very traumatic losses from that was Power Pack. Now, I know not everybody is the biggest Power Pack fan, but I know the two of us are, Nathan, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So what was your first interaction with Power Pack? I think for me, it's X-Men 195.
So when I started getting into comic books, they used to have these like 2-packs that would be like 2-packs for $1. So like or 50 cents. I don't remember what it was. It was a while ago, but like I would get these 2-packs and like I would look for the ones that had New Mutants. So like I got all like those old like New Mutants like 20s to 30 issues, and they would always be teamed up with like a Power Pack issue for some reason in it, which fine, it's cool.
Wheezy?
That's right. Makes sense actually. Actually, that was really good branding, cross branding marketing on it. So that's how I got into Power Pack. I think probably like through those 2-packs, I used to collect, like probably collected like half or more than half of the series that way.
Well, let me just say that that's an amazing savings you have amassed, my friend, because one of the things that I discovered in doing a little bit more research for this title, of course, this title being Power Pack, The Powers That Be, from 2000 to 2001 by the team of Ryan North and Nico Leon. Hey, Nico, cool name, bro. And I know we started coverage on this and then we kind of lost track of it because there were so many X books going on, and we were maybe a little concerned this would be a little bit more outlawed than it was X-Men. So we kind of put it on hold for a little bit. And here we are in our first episode of Trade Waiting, and we waited on it. The trade is here. Let's talk about it. So in the research for this episode, I came across a lot of information on the original Power Pack 1 to 62 that ran from August of 1984 to February of 1991. Now, this series is significant because it has held on to its value like I can't fucking believe. A lot of the issues pricing at about $8, if not like 12 and 13.
Wow.
It's a significant thing, and I think it's because of the very seldom reprints it's seen that kind of maybe makes it a little bit special. Now, during that original run of 1 to 62, Power Pack also had a graphic novel on top of many other appearances in books like Secret Wars 2 and X-Men, and tons of appearances. But they had Power Pack and Cloak and Dagger, Shelter from the Storm Marvel graphic novel in 1989. And then shortly after the conclusion of their series, in holiday fall season, that thing where you release the holiday comics in fall, so everyone has time to buy them. In 1992, we got the Power Pack Holiday Special. It would be some time before Power Pack were given any significant treatment, and then in 2000 they were given a 4-issue miniseries. That was not the restart on the franchise I think Marvel was hoping for. Of course, 2000 was sort of a rough time for Marvel in general, and we wound up with one of my favorite iterations of Power Pack, the Mark Summerak and Gerahiru era of Power Pack, which saw from May of 2005 through April of 2009, Power Pack 1 through 4, X-Men and Power Pack 1 through 4, Avengers and Power Pack 1 through 4, Spider-Man and Power Pack 1 through 4, Hulk and Power Pack 1 through 4, Fantastic Four and Power Pack 1 through 4. The very differently named Iron Man Power Pack 1 through 4, Power Pack Day 1, 1 through 4, Skrulls versus Power Pack 1 through 4. So this fucking Power Pack side series universe even got in on Secret Invasion in its own way. Fuck these dudes, right? And then it all kind of culminated with Wolverine Power Pack 1 through 4, which ran January through April of 2009. From there, Power Pack received very little love until the sort of groundbreaking era of Marvel Legacy did a lot to reset what we thought about a lot of that universe. And we got Power Pack number 63, which technically shipped in 2017, but it has a cover date of January 2018. Now, I was not really still interested in Power Pack by the end. By the end, it was being written by a guy by the name of Michael Higgins. Now, Michael Higgins is awesome, but what I know Michael Higgins best for is probably his sort of Excalibur fill-in stuff and like the occasional annuals appearance. So I don't know that I don't like Michael Higgins as much as I don't necessarily associate him with the best of X-Men. So as somebody who is a Power Pack fan, how did you feel about getting this conclusion? I mean, literally 26 years later, how did you feel getting this final story, putting kind of the end you needed? Or were you just kind of like, why did they go back?
For Power Pack 63 is what you're talking about? Or,
Yeah.
So I literally loved those runs. I don't think I loved that issue. I love the idea of the titles being revisited because they also did Dazzler 43. And so I was like, oh my God, yes, these people are getting all these like final issues or like, like a continuation. And the issue itself was middling there. It wasn't like great. It wasn't horrible, but it wasn't like, oh my God, I've got to get this. And like, this really was necessary. So that's really
it wasn't the defining issue. Maybe hoped for a 26-year later finale.
You'd hope.
Now, were you a fan of the Samarak Girahuru era? I mean, I just think it was so cute. I worked at a comic shop during those years, so I picked up a lot of those digests. I just thought they were so sweet. As someone who maybe has a stronger affinity for true Power Pack, do you maybe not feel as warmly as I do, or are you on the warm train?
I'll be honest, I really stayed away from them because I don't necessarily love out of continuity tales, right? So it's a totally separate universe.
Mr. Dazzler AOA, I get it.
Well,
No, I get it. It's totally different.
Yeah.
One has bearing on the final outcome of the characters and invented beautiful new iterations, while the other sort of, and no offense to the creators I just said I love so much, maybe dumbed down some of Wheezy and June's spectacular familial development. And that I do get.
Yeah, it seemed very like Power Pack Calvin and Hobbes to me, which is not a bad thing. It just
not bad at all.
Wasn't something that drew me in. I did read a few of them. They were cute. It just never really drew me in, and it was never like, it wasn't my Power Pack, right? So
say no more, because like we recently ran a segment. In fact, it's going to be part of this episode. So I'm responding to something in this episode. That's amazing. Yes. So number one, in another segment, some of our amazing correspondents, Josh, Steve, and Drew, said there are no bad runs of Daredevil. As a guy who's literally read all of them, I promise you, if you look hard enough, you'll find them, right? But beyond that, I loved everything that the guys said. It was such a beautiful discussion of what they love about comics. And one of the things that they specifically said that they loved so much. And I feel so funny because like I'm not coming at anybody for their Daredevil preferences. I don't want anyone to think that that's what I'm saying. But the group said that one of the things they don't understand is why Generation X isn't more in print. And I definitely agree with them. I maybe do think that Marvel is staying away from a number of the creators who worked on Generation X on sort of the beginning end and the end, right? I think the middle creators, like the brilliant Jay Farber, is, so underappreciated. I am a famous Larry Hama on this show. I talk so much about what a genius he is, but I always do make sure to make the joke. I just don't know that Larry Hama had his finger on the pulse of what was cool and exciting in the teenage years of the mid 90s. So I'm not sure what happened there, but I bring all this up because I think Christina Strange Gen X is my Gen X.
Yes.
I like, I don't even know what to say because, you know, I've read all, let's go with 85 of the original. Let's throw in underground special annuals, crossover issues, tie-ins. Let's call it a fat 85. Let's even, and let's throw in the intro. Let's call it a Thickums 100. Okay. Let's say Gen X Volume 1 is a Thickums 100. I still like Christina Strange Gen X a little bit more. At what, 11 issues, 17 issues, whatever it was, and their total appearances is not much more. It just really rang true with me. So I really do understand the idea of something that is so a part of who you are growing up as a comics fan. Something, because we all have that thing we magicked into. I actually magicked into Daredevil. My dad bought a multi-pack and gave it to me. That was the first comics I ever read. Daredevil really imprinted on me. And for those of you who know me well, the second comic I ever read was a Green Lantern comic. So you might understand why I have a complete collection of all the rings and why when I go to Great Adventure, I cosplay Green Lantern. You might understand these things a little, right? And so I do get this idea of transformation of something you love into something not quite what you wanted.
Yeah.
Now, my further investigation led me to something I didn't know existed, which was a one-shot in 2019 called Power Pack Grow Up.
Yeah.
I didn't know this was a thing. And, could you tell me a little bit more about it? Because I don't really understand what it was, because here the kids felt much younger. Julie feels 20 fucking years younger than she was 20 years ago in the Loners. And, I feel like I expect some continuity on characters like Franklin to be fluxy, but these kids, Jack is very stunted in where he was in 1984.
Yeah.
I'm as somebody who teaches these kids, I'm not sure that Katie was written to grade level. Truly, her art, it would indicate to me perhaps we needed to work with her a bit more. Like, as like a parent, I would be concerned about some of the spelling errors because we know her to be like, wasn't she 14 at one point? Like, so what is grow up, and why don't I understand how 63 grow up and this can all function together?
They can't.
Okay.
And that's the problem I have with this mini series. Is it really, like, it's not a horrible story, but at all. It's a decent story, and it's just, it doesn't fit in. There's a lot of continuity issues, and even so, talk about one of the plot points in this miniseries was, hey, we really want to tell our parents that we have powers, right? They did that. The parents went crazy. They literally can't. The parents had a breakdown. The parents had a breakdown when they found out their kids were superheroes. They literally cannot tell their parents that they have powers, or else they'll have a breakdown again. So, like, the fact that that was a plot point in this miniseries was problematic to me because it really ignored a big plot point in the past for Power Pack. Same with costumes, right? So they're like, how many times do we see them in this miniseries putting on costumes when, like, hello, you just costume on, and like,
yeah. Well, I mean, and they kind of seem to like artistically costume on, like they seem to like magic it. And I wonder, because I had both of the same issues, right? I wonder if we're trying to stay away from problematic mental illness tropes, but in order to do so, we've oversimplified what we're talking about, right? We're kind of, in an effort to correct the course, we're just kind of pretending that didn't happen, which in many ways invalidates a number of the stories that are why we're even doing this, right?
Yep.
And secondarily, I feel like it's the term you and I use the most, MC unification.
Yeah.
If Power Pack are going to get an animated series, they're going to need a magical girl transformation.
Yeah.
And to have, Nico Leon come in and design this super cool, sort of like touchpad transforming magic, that's really endemic of how the comics can't get away from their counterparts anymore.
Yeah.
So I do share your problems, even if I can reason them away. They do kind of get to me a little bit.
Yeah. And also, and this might be part of it too, but like in between Power Pack, right? Alex Power spent a good chunk in New Warriors, right?
Fantastic Warriors and Warriors from
And
New
FF,
Year's.
yeah, the Fury Warriors, whatever they are, the Fantastic Warriors. That would be a funny team. But yeah, no, but like, yeah, he was in New Warriors, and then obviously and he was a big part of that
Future Foundation.
Future Foundation. Thank you. I was like, it's FF, but what is it really called? Future Foundation run.
Fire Fist. What is it again?
Fire Fire Fest. Oh no. But like that, and like, why didn't they go to the Fantastic Four to try to have them be one of their mentors? Like, oh my god. Like, and I get it when you put it that way, that they're trying to make it a very MC unification kind of thing to it, trying to revisit and revamp it a little bit. I just think, whereas some stories have done a great job of telling it, like America Chavez, right? Made in America has done a great job of saying, hey, cool, all of this stuff was what she thought, but this is what it really is.
Yeah, there's a little difference, but
Yeah.
we're not disregarding what came before.
Yeah. So that's what I'm thinking this has to be. It has to be some of that. But then they reference the X-Men love.
And Wolverine shows up. And
yeah.
So essentially, the story we're here to talk about is kind of in many ways, a hard reset on Power Pack to a younger iteration that, while acknowledging bits of the continuity outside of it, is sort of reliant on a general sense of reset, right? And the story sees the four kids reunite for the first time in some time, as Alex has been busy and Julie is busy with Ricky. And Jack is dealing with burgeoning testosterone problems.
Oh no.
And again, I just want to make sure Katie's reading at grade level. Like, the educator in me is really concerned about her, because one of the things I did not get from this series was a sense of their ages.
Yep.
I feel like one of the best devices was having the narration rotate through the kids, because I was able to get a sense of who they were. No, I take that back. I was able to get a sense of who they are with no sense of who they were.
Yeah.
That's what I think I need to say. It almost feels like Commedia dell'arte, where you're kind of casting the role. The character doesn't need a backstory. The character, you don't need to know their motivations, because you understand that guy is the heel, and you understand that guy is the straight man. So you don't need a compelling understanding of the individual characters and their motivations, because you have a general understanding of the characters and their motivations. And that does a lot of the heavy lifting for you. And it's almost disappointing that there were references to prior Power Pack things, because I truly loved the jab at we can switch powers, actually, and how they don't do that. Even though by now I would think these four kids would have worked together to learn how to do that. If nothing else, Katie and Jack would have. That would have been something the two who stayed behind would have had fun with. It would have been a game. And I have a specific thing I would have rather, and it sounds so strange, but this for what this adventure is, could have been told a little differently and been the origin of a bold new young Black family of heroes at our power pack.
Ooh.
And there could have been a second power pack, and the original power pack could have been their mentors. And that would have been a bolder story, a stronger story, because my only actual problem with this miniseries, and I can't wait to get to all the things we loved in just a moment, but my real problem was, as contributor Jonah would say, commit to the bit. What are we here? Are we a power pack reset? Or are we a continuation of the thing that we were talking about? Because I don't know which it is, and I'm feeling a little confused from it.
Yeah, I think your idea of recasting Power Pack is a team of color would have been amazing, would have probably solved my biggest issue with this miniseries, like overall, which was that it doesn't acknowledge the fact that all these kids are being incarcerated for being superheroes, but you've got the little team of little white kids who get
Just
away
running
with,
around.
yeah, they're running around, they're getting away with it. Like, okay, if that's something you want to point out and point out, like bring up and point out, do it in a way that, cool, let's acknowledge that these kids know that they have the privilege, that they got away with what they got away with, whereas these other heroes didn't. But there's no self-awareness of that fact in this book.
Right. And, Ryan North dealt the hand he was given. And by that, I
Yeah.
mean, I don't think writers come in and say to Marvel, I don't care what you got planned for 3 crossovers from now, and fuck your little movie studio. You can eat Disney Plus. This is my power pack idea, and y'all are going to do it because I just put my nuts on the table. I don't think any writer does that. And I certainly don't think someone who wrote this with the deft love that Ryan North wrote this with did that. I instead think Ryan North was told, either pitch me or pitch me Power Pack. He either pitched this story or pitched this story for Power Pack. And Marvel editorial said, this is what it needs to be in line with what's going on. Yeah. We have this thing going, we have this thing, because, they pitch these things 2 years out. Yeah. And they probably said, we have this thing coming up called Kamala's Law, and you're going to be part of the launch effect of it. And I feel like for that reason, Ryan North did the best he possibly could with what felt like a great opportunity to play a losing hand.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're right. The story it's well executed. It's not a bad story. It's
at all.
It's just the parts that probably intentionally don't fit are kind of what are my sticking points. And especially for them to continue publishing this book, obviously means they have some sort of plans for Power Pack, because
agreed.
They canceled New Warriors, they canceled a lot of the outlawed minis. So obviously they want something to happen from this sort of thing, or some sort of, even if they've got to keep the IP copyright, whatever.
Even if it's IP work, then you publish the right kind of IP work. You publish a quiet, shitty little annual.
Yeah.
And you just let it suck, and you let it be small, and you let it be just desk stories that you found in a drawer in 1987. Like,
so like literal drawer stories.
Yeah. Like, you don't publish a miniseries you don't believe in. Yeah. And that's why I don't think Marvel doesn't believe in this story. And I think for any execution problems it had, I do want to touch on some of the stuff I loved about it.
Yeah.
And I loved the idea of the artwork pages. I think while I love the idea of the artwork pages more, the execution of them is a little bit off, which is where, that's kind of the joke we're making, that it's usually the other way with this book. But that's it was such a great idea to have the kids draw it. I maybe would have loved it if they found a way to make it all 4 kids.
Yes.
If Katie's had been this little picture book, Jack's had been a comic, if Julie's was a, paint while you drink uh, thing, and Alex's is a computer 3D rendering in CAD. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I would have loved that, maybe a little more to fit in with the narration style, but the device was very true to Power Pack.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
sure.
No, that was amazing. I loved there were some great callbacks to some previous issues that I loved. Like the Boogeyman is like the start off villain.
Right.
Like more classic Power Pack can you get than that? Wolverine showing up in like Wolverine, like that was amazing and that was so cute. And I was like, okay, this is great. And just the interactions they had with the other heroes outside of those outside of Wolverine, they did they did call on the fact that Power Pack is a long established superhero team with roots in the community. So there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of really cute stuff.
It's so much cute stuff. I was kind of like, why the wizard? Convince me why the wizard. And then it became kind of clear why the wizard.
Yeah.
Because Mad Tinkerer is a little too fucking nuts. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Annihilus would just eat the children. And, you can't put, like Annihilation from X of Swords in there, right? You need to pick a villain, right? You need to pick a villain that's like,
Yeah.
even if you're in the NBA, when you're hanging out with your 5-year-old nephew, you don't dunk hard on him, right? So you can't send a Galactus level threat against Power Pack in their reintroduction. I know they have faced Galactus before, but the reintroduction to this audience can't be that. So Wizard is kind of a sloppy bitch. So like, I get using Wizard. I thought the conceit of they're being shitty to one another because the wizard is in them, and so now he has their insecurity, was the right balance of those two devices.
Yeah.
I don't like that device that something's influencing the people, making them be dicks. I don't love that device, but damn, that explained the kids arguing too much in a way that I accepted.
Yeah.
And then the converse was great. Like, now he's insecure. Raise your hand if you've been personally victimized by Wolverine. And like,
yay.
It was such a nice touch that I thought, wow, what a cute little jump back to 1980s comics in a way that did fit Power Pack really beautifully.
Yeah. Yeah. I would have loved some like maybe like have like Danny Moonstar or something show up too, because they've got, like, oh cute. But like, it was a good balance of bringing up the history and moving it forward. Maybe I didn't like love the direction it was moving into, but like it was a really good balance of that. I did like too the way he modernized some of the kids, like, having Jack try to be a YouTube star. That was cute, and that really fit Jack's personality. So Julie and Alex read pretty well, pretty much what I expected them to be. Katie read a lot like she used to read, and I get it. We're ignoring some of that middle stuff that nobody really.
But it was
to
the
be
over
honest,
mollification.
Yeah.
I understand that Molly was written the way Brian K. Vaughan's younger sister behaved at that age. But one of the things that maybe needs to be considered is that frequently people only behave the way a younger sibling behaves because they are over infantilized by the older siblings acting as a second set of adults.
Yeah.
So Molly, as a single child, as an only child, behaving the way that someone in a more attention-paying nuclear family would behave as the youngest child didn't really track for me. And with that in mind, I can accept Katie, but that's why I keep saying I want to make sure she's at grade level. Like, she's not portrayed in a way that I believe is disrespectful. She's portrayed in a way that I feel is over infantilizing, which actually tracks with the youngest of four.
Okay.
I have a weird thought, though. I kind of couldn't read a difference between Alex and Julie. They read very similar, which I think is the only real failing of the team's hierarchy. You have two very responsible older siblings who function as each other when the other can't. They have their own foibles and their own follies, but
Yeah.
they function very similarly. Alex is quick with a badass fact, just like Julie is. We saw Julie do it a little more here, but
Yeah.
that's who Alex is in a lot of his other appearances. And then you have two much more immature children. I could definitely read a difference between Katie and Jack, and that's because I think Jack does personify, like, I mean, I joke the burgeoning testosterone of a 13-year-old boy, but oh my God, having taught 13-year-olds recently, who I would have to figure out that that's the loudmouth kid day one, and I would have to make sure that no one else loud sits near him. And I just thought that there was a charm to the fact that by alternating the perspective, the maybe similarities between Julie and Alex didn't really shine through until I looked back. And I thought that was kind of a neat way to do it. How did you feel about the kids and their narrative voices having grown up all these years?
Uh, it's hard. So like Jack really read like how I expected Jack to read.
Totally.
Katie, even though yes, she was a little infantilized, she did read like I expected Katie to read.
Like classic Katie.
Yeah, like
sure.
classic Katie. She really read like classic Katie, and I know she should have moved past that point, but also I know that the readers are like, oh, Katie should talk like this still. So that's part of probably what's going into it. The problem with Alex and Julie is they've had a lot more development on their own since they were a part of Power Pack. So that's not the same Alex who was such a big player in the Future Foundation to me. And that's not the same Julie who showed up in the pages of Runways or even Future Foundation and went into space with her brother. That's
Same.
yeah.
I'm completely with you.
Yeah.
So, and it's kind of like we have to do that with other characters all the time too.
Yeah.
We kind of hand wave when this person was evil for a year and kind of pretend that Cyclops didn't die recently, and before everybody kept dying, right? And there's kind of a lot of stuff that we don't interact with too much to make characters make sense, and that's fine.
Yeah.
I am here for it. I also want to take a minute to say the wonderful job Nico Leon did. He created a book filled with childlike wonder.
Yeah.
One of the things I like to talk about is deformation of figure, the way that every artist naturally makes stuff look not quite the way it's supposed to on purpose.
Yeah.
That's a stylized element. That's a defining growth moment. And what he created here was pixel for pixel, ready to be a video game, ready to be an animated series, ready to be translated to television, ready to be translated to probably like a CGI movie. I don't think Power Pack can lead a live action movie at this point. It has nothing to do with the quality of Nico Leon's art, and it has certainly nothing to do with Ryan North's story. But I think he created a visual that would translate to the mediums that I do see them working on, whether it's Disney Plus or the like.
Yes. Yeah, no, it would be Power Pack would be a great Disney Plus animated or even live action series. Like it would really translate well into that, and it would fit the younger market that obviously they're trying to push Power Pack back into. And I think that's one of the problems with Power Pack is they can never really grow up, right?
They can never age out of this.
Yeah.
It's like no one's clamoring for Tiny Titans go to high school.
Okay, now I want that though.
I desperately want it, right? So, all said and done, looking back, this was 5 issues. I think it really picked up at 3.
Yeah.
I think it was really rolling at 5. The ending was a little too fast for me. Those last 3 pages were a little too fast. I understand that that's not how the industry works, but this book could have used 4 more pages, kind of like a nice epilogue. And I think if you're a fan of Power Pack, give it a read. Figure out whether this fits your fan of Power Packdom or not. And I would probably only say the one like is we shouldn't have brought up Whitey. Like should have just been Magical Space Horse and moved on. And it's just the name, the imagery of it, it's a little silly.
Yeah, I mean, like I wouldn't have minded like an appearance by Friday, but like, you know, like the ship, that's cool. The ship's a cool looking ship, right? But I think the more you keep him away from the chameleon, how do you say it? Like is it
I
chameleon?
thought it was
Like
chameleon. Yeah, like I
chameleon? Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, the more you stay away from the chameleon origin story and like kind of like hand wave that away, I think the better for it. And please never bring up Alex turning into a chameleon. Ever, never, 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 never.
never.
Yeah.
So your final thoughts, what do you think? Do you think it was worth waiting on? Do you think it's worth the read? And like, I mean, I would say pick it up on Comixology if you don't mind.
Yeah.
But if not, it's on Marvel Unlimited, and that's a great place to catch it. What do you think about this book, all said and done?
I think it's worth a read for Marvel Unlimited for sure. I wouldn't go out and pick it up before you read it first because it's going to be very hit or miss. And if you're a longtime Power Pack fan, it might not hit the buttons you're wanting it to hit. I think
Mm,
it's it's definitely geared more towards a younger reader.
for
So the
sure.
longtime Power Pack fans aren't gonna necessarily appreciate it. I do think overall, is it a worthwhile read? I think there's a lot of parts of it that do make it worthwhile, and the art and the stylization on that really it's adorable, and the writing is good too. The writing's good too. I don't want to say it's not. The writing's good too. It's just it's not the iteration of Power Pack that I was expecting as a longtime fan.
And we're really saying that a lot of that we understand better now from what
Yeah,
editors are telling us is that that's from editorial, not
yeah,
necessarily the editors that talk to us on Twitter, but kind of like corporate editorial.
yeah,
So all said and done, Ryan North, great job. Nico Leon, kind of an amazing job.
yeah.
Uh, Bold new direction for Power Pack, maybe not, but certainly a new direction for it.
Yes, absolutely.
And guys, thank you so much for checking out Trade Waiting. We will be checking out more recent stories in the near future. Jed McKay, we're coming for your Black Cat. Jason Aaron, that Avengers run I keep talking about, that's me just
Dollar,
printing
dollar, dollar, dollar,
Avengers
dollar.
money, I guess. Right?
Dollar bills,
So,
y'all.
dollar bills, y'all. On that dated note, we'll catch you guys next time.
Bye.